So you mentioned on this Horizons, I like the way you set that up, right? Moving into, we're in the early stages of TAP. Do you care to talk about what's the next curve? Is it voice, like true voice, not old school voice,
Right.
pick up the phone, but hey Alexa.
Yeah, and I say this all the time to my counterpart who runs our call centers. I said, voice is sexy again, right? Because our central reservation offices have been trying to manage a downward cycle. Not many people are calling them anymore, but they know a ton about the way people actually talk and the cadence and what they ask for. And through voice listening tools, they actually powered our initial Alexa implementation in the hotel rooms, where we actually had a repository of things that guests normally ask. They call the call center to ask. We can actually build it into it. So voice is sexy again. I do believe that's the next interface for us. But it's a different way. I think Google's taught people to type in keywords. And really what you've got to understand is the way people naturally talk will be coming back in vogue.
So Paul, do you think that, just building on that a little bit, as these bots start to interact with us and not require typing or keystrokes or clicks, is this something where you expect, I mean, you're seeing that for business travelers? Is there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's funny, you mentioned Google's teaching people how to work with keywords. The original voice products, you had to talk the way Alexa understood as opposed to talk naturally, but Alexa's getting better and better in some of the Alexa apps. I do think ultimately talking to your phone and saying, I want a hotel tomorrow night, or I'm going to be in Chicago on Thursday, and then having it know enough about the context and enough about your personalization requirements that it does everything for you. So a lot of getting voice to work really well is having good context and good history for that person so that the voice-powered system can interpret what the person wants. And right now we're at the very beginning of that, but I think it's a pretty exciting future.
So the first step, parsing the query, right? That seems to have gotten a lot better. The delivery of the results, Alexa doesn't have that information, right? They just spout out and read off the first result that they get, very often through the search engine, which is reading a web page. It's terrible. I don't know if you guys have done that. It's a wretched experience. But Amazon, perhaps this is their play. They've tried and failed to break into travel for a while. Could this be it? What do you guys think?
I think I'm excited to watch Google's product evolve. I'm a huge Alexa fan. I think I have half a dozen devices in my house. I actually have one in my Jeep that I installed. But I think Google's going to have a big advantage because Google has the context. They know what you've been doing on your phone, on your desktop computer. So when you ask a simple query to Google Home, it can piece together all that, where Amazon doesn't have that viewpoint. So although I'm a huge Alexa fanboy, and I think they're the leader right now, I'm very interested to see how Google evolves just because of that contextual knowledge.
Amazon knows what you're buying, and they know what you're consuming, so they may not know what you're doing outside of consumption.
Yeah.
They know a lot about that. Okay, interesting. Well, I want to talk to Dan about this interesting challenge you have of how many brands do you have?
30 brands in the group.
30 brands, and you've only just started cross-selling them into each other. So you're basically using the data you have across these brands first.
Yes.
How's that going so far?
Yeah, really well. I mean, that's a very obvious connection to look at that customer journey over an extended period of time and realize that as the industry changes, we're not competing, those brands are not competing against each other, which was obviously the traditional model. And so the more advanced way to approach this across the group is certainly to look at leverage the power of the group and the collective. And so the interesting learnings now, and this works for us and it also works for our partners, is actually trying to work out, once you've been to one destination, what is the most likely next destination? So what are the patterns that we start to see that are emerging that we can then start to act on so that we know to prompt a message 12 months after a previous trip to know that they're then in the planning cycle or the research cycle for the next trip, and to be able to, obviously, like any of us here, try and suggest it before they've even thought of it. Because that's some of the trending and the behavior that we're seeing. But then equally, we can provide that to our partners as well and empower them to have that information so that they can actually start leveraging the fact that they can sell multiple brands and to arm them with that information. And I think that's where data, like Caesar's Palace went bankrupt a couple of years ago. I know you guys may know that the single most valuable asset that they had was their data, and it was valued by the judge at $1 billion, right? And so I think it's lost on us a lot of times about what the value of that data truly is, and then trying to actually leverage it So the sky is the limit right now, as you can see, and we discussed last night, where we've started and the journey that we're on, and where we can actually go with this, and how we can evolve the business and the product based on the information that we're gleaning from that.
So how long before we have tapped the value of the really simple, dumb data that we have, like the fact that somebody who goes to Ireland may also want to take a river cruise down the Danube, right?
Yep.
And they're not competing,
Yeah.
right? That's sort of basic info.
Of course,
How long before we go beyond that to data that you're not capturing, but your partners have, to knit that together into a true pattern?
Well, I think that's where, when I mentioned partners and platforms second, because the two really coexist. And the fact that what that our partners are seeing that we're not currently able to have that view of, whether it be that showing a sense of urgency by highlighting the fact there's only 3 seats left, which we haven't done, and obviously Booking.com, and like this is where, as the space continues to rapidly evolve, where something happens and then it becomes a standard, an expectation. So our partners are providing us that insight, and so that's why it's crucial for us to be able to open ourselves up and look at ourselves as a platform, not only to our brands, but also to our partners, and make sure that we have product councils and we have regular discussions with them, and we have them at the table to be able to help us evolve our business. And so that's the insights that we need to be able to evolve rather than just being so internally focused.
But do we think, put a number out there, how many years before your next biggest bet, the biggest payoff, is data that isn't yours, right?
Sure, yeah.
How long before you've run out of the max value of your current data that you own?
Well, it's interesting because, and this is where I think when we look at how quickly these and I think we're all kind of products of the dot-com era, and we see how fast things, the promise that we were provided then is happening now, right? In terms of but the one thing I think that's important to look at is that just because you can buy groceries online doesn't mean you want a web van, right? I think we all discovered that. That just because it was possible doesn't mean, and I think that's where when we look at that data, we have time to run here. When you look at like the 10-year wallet and the idea of over the next 10 years, is that travelers will continue to look at different destinations. They will continue to alter their travel experiences. We can shape the product and with our partners. So I think we have some time to run yet. So I think it's, for us, I think the advantage is focusing actually on the near term and realizing those opportunities, that as opposed to thinking so far ahead that we get ahead of ourselves, because we may not provide something that the customer actually wants because we're starting to outthink it. So I think right now, for our vantage point, we need to be looking at the horizon of the next 3 to 5 years and start to anticipate and change from there, rather than try to project where, once we run out of it, what do we do then?
So, interesting point there, that we have to be careful not to look too far out. And immediately turn to Paul, right? You're going into a crowded space, business travelers. Patterns are hard to change for business travelers. They book the way they book. They like it. A lot of times, we know in the hotel business, if they're frequent guests at a hotel, they tell them, "I'll be back on Tuesday. Can you have my suit cleaned?" Right? They don't even do anything. It's just coming. You have a big ambition for Lola. You're hitting real need. Is the market ready to tackle that need? Are the travelers ready, and how are you going to do that?
I think it is. With larger companies, Concur is the market leader right now, and I describe Concur as a software that business travelers love to hate. It's painful. Concur is usually deployed through the VP of Finance or CFO for expense management. It's not really a great user experience. I mentioned that Boston to San Francisco flight a moment ago. We did a search in Concur last week, and they actually showed a 5-stop connection from Boston to San Francisco, which is just inane. So I think there's a lot of business software that's been designed not by consumer guys, which are about bottom-up ease of use, but designed by people who build back-office software. And I think there's a lot of room there. I think hotel loyalty is huge. I think right now when I was at Kayak, I think about 25% of our travelers were business travelers, even if we didn't aim for it. People saw utility in the tool. But the problem is when you don't go hotel direct, you're missing a lot of benefits. And so for us, it's really important for our bookings to give you the exact same benefits you get by booking hotel direct, because we do realize that people are loyal to their brands.
So the other topic for us, for this panel, is partnerships, and we heard a lot about that from Dan. What partnerships do you need to be successful that it can really help you get to where you envision faster? I'm talking to you now.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking for these guys, see if one of them wants to jump on that. Right now, we're a software startup, and we're building on other toolkits, but I guess I would say We use Amadeus for flights. We use Sabre for hotel booking right now. We're doing integration with Alexa, with Google. So we're integrating certain products, but most of what we're doing is building our own software, similar to what I did at Kayak.
Mm-hmm. So you're not looking for partners to get you to the next level. You're going to do it yourself, for the most part.
Well, right, the stage
with solution providers for stuff that is commodity services.
Yeah, the stage right now. So Lola's a software company, and right now we're focused on trying to build the perfect user experience, kind of end to end. Once we feel like that's working, we've turned the corner, then we're going to look for distribution partners to help us get the brand out to more people. We're also going to look for service providers such that right now we have only 15 travel agents based in Boston, and they cover 24/7 shift. I don't want to have 1,000 agents on my team, so we clearly need to partner and find someone that has a lot of agents already that want to be able to connect to this new type of business traveler.
I got another just question about the strategy. So you've got a solution that's built on AI. Thank you. But AI or big data requires you to have data,
Yeah.
right? So you've got a little bit of a chicken and egg, cart horse scenario here. How are you going to fill in that data gap with some third-party data until you have your own?
Yeah, so we're buying data. For example, last year we announced, or maybe it was 6 or 8 months ago, the acquisition of Room 77 technology because they had really good meta search and they had years of experience of getting hotel data. Hotel is the most important vertical for us. We're also buying data from other companies. And then even with Sabre and Amadeus, we can get anonymized data, which is really useful to us in prediction. From our AI standpoint, we also do clustering, where if you're looking, let's say, for hotel in Miami, we haven't seen you travel to Miami before, we can do a couple things. One is we can look at the hotels you stay at in New York and say, if you like the Gansevoort in New York, maybe like the Delano in Miami, because there's a lot of similarity in those hotels. But we can also do user clustering and say, okay, we've never seen you in Miami, but we've seen other people in New York who pick the same New York hotel as you, and when they stay in Miami, here's where they stay.
Excellent. So it is necessary to provide, to seed the engine a bit.
Yeah.
So you're using partnerships to help close that
Yeah,
gap.
yes.
Interesting. So Bill, here's a question for you. So we've got these two companies out here, a disruptor hitting an unmet need. We've got an established company that's serving a need, but for the hotels, this is represents an important but very expensive source of new business. But in the hotel business, you've been plagued by startups for a long time who just chip away at profitability of the suppliers. Where would you really like these guys to focus versus, not necessarily these guys, but all the future startups and disruptors? What gaps would you like for them to close, and which ones do you want them to leave alone because you can do it better?
Well, I think, and I'm not necessarily on the media buying side of that, so I can't answer some of those particular questions in detail. But I do think, as we build a loyal base, we would prefer to be able to market and contact them directly and not have to pay for them through a third party, right? They have a direct relationship with us, so it would be helping us, get more folks loyal to our brands. That can certainly mean, in our loyalty schema, our loyalty program, but helping us harvest those folks that are looking for brands, looking for experiences that our brands meet, and drive them in, and then. Other partners is, I can't say it enough, but with the advent of mobile, channels and on-property experiences are interweaved in the guest's mind, right? And so how do you help us connect the experience, especially as a franchisor, where we don't own the real estate, we don't own the building, it's a third party, but the consumer doesn't understand it. But how do you connect all the way from booking through stay and departure and create a seamless, integrated experience across that whole journey? It's where I'm looking for partners.
So you would welcome new entrants in that space to bridge that gap, even though they could be inserting themselves into the customer relationship at key points, customer relationships that they maybe didn't create.
Yeah. Well, we would obviously want to talk to them about brand presence, right? We'd want our brand to be, present especially in our hotels and in our rooms. Certainly don't mind giving a nice little, call out to them, but it would be the Intercontinental branded experience from end to end. It would be the Holiday Inn branded experience from end to end. Data would be ours. We'd have to talk about whose data it is, but it would be ours. But that's kind of what we would I'm looking for more partners in there.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's take a Slido question, and maybe we'll throw that ball, that cube at somebody. All right. Digitally empowered, but hate the idea of Google or Amazon listening in my house. Yeah, that is totally creepy. Although I think that might be a generational thing. So, what do we think about that? I mean, it's moving to Bill's fourth wave. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, the 5 people who voted on this, I'd like to know if you were laggards entering your credit card into Amazon as well. I mean, I really think this is something that people are going to become used to. When you can go to your house and say, turn on the lights, play Bruce Springsteen, turn up the heat. When you're getting used to talking to your house and have to do the right things, people will learn that they are going to allow these devices. I really think it can make a big difference.
It can be great. I will tell you, they need to improve Alexa sensitivity. I use Alexa all the time to listen to the radio, and a lot of it is news. But when they mention Alexa, she starts to listen, and then she cuts off the broadcast. It's really annoying.
I was going to say, just to add to that, I think it's a very good point, is that, and I totally agree with regards to where we stand right now with natural language processing and Cortana or Alexa, is that we feel as though we're speaking to someone else. There's someone else that's watching us, and I think that's actually the wrong perspective, because it's actually a value add for us. And I think the other way to look at it, I think this is where we're being taught to use voice recognition, and that is an entryway point. To get those products into our home is to achieve a comfort level for each of us to be able to have that exchange. But think of it differently. Think of it if it actually is your own personal assistant or your own digital self. And I actually prefer the idea of your digital self, like this idea that there is someone that's your alter ego that you can otherwise utilize to do things on your behalf. And it's why, so if you have someone that basically, so if it's not Cortana, it's Dan, it's Dan's assistant that helps me order things, do shopping, and starts to actually do very helpful things. It's not about someone listening to me. It's not like Amazon or Google. It's providing you enough value, and if you have that confidence, I think that perspective will shift over time, which is why I like some of the things that you guys are doing with actually, the whole idea of a travel assistant, which is the whole idea of having someone that can assist you that starts with AI and is supplemented by human interaction, which is where we need it to be right now. But over time, that will gradually become just genuinely accepted. So we will see, as you say, when we say laggards, or we'll see less of this once people start to embrace it as more of a personalized service.
Or as Bill said, the representatives in the call center have tremendous domain knowledge, great experience, using technology to harness that, scale it without necessarily having to add more bodies or making people dial a phone number is pretty tremendous. I mean, your other investment, I know, is a company called Get Human, which is about human service. So here you have this artificial intelligence bot solution, and then you have this human business. So
yeah, it's interesting. Get Human was created out of my frustration with IVRs. When you try to call Verizon and they say press 1 for this, press 2 for that. It's like, you're the fucking phone company. I'm paying you $100 a month. Can I talk to a human? So Get Human was
representative.
Getting around the machine and getting direct to a human.
Yeah, we all want to know. But
humans are important. When you're having a problem, particularly in travel when things go wrong, you want someone who has some empathy with what you're experiencing and can get you a solution really quickly.
Sure. And you guys know the hack for the life hack for getting to a human fast. For those, for companies that say, would you be willing to take a 1-question survey at the end of this call? Say yes. You're going to get to a person faster because you're going to be happier. And then they'll survey you and you'll say how happy you are. It's absolutely true. So do that. If you wanted to get to a human faster, say, I'd be delighted to tell you about the experience. Okay. Yeah, good. Do we have time for another question? How are we doing on time? Where's my? Well, we're gonna keep on plowing through. Let's grab the cube and see who would like to ask a question with the cube. Questions from the audience. You want to fling it out there to him? There, you got one? You can ask. You just took it from him.
Oh no, I didn't have a question.
Who wants the cube? All right. And any questions for our panel? Some of these guys have. We got the guy who built Kayak here, a guy who's been a mobile pioneer. Do we have anybody back there? All right, we'll go back to Slido while you're thinking of this. Lola, where is the travel manager in your solution? You address the traveler, but what about things like duty of care? It's a big deal, right?
It's a huge deal. Right now, Lola is focused on the road warrior, the individual business traveler, but then you have to ask yourself, if it's a company where 5 people using Lola, like what happens next? How do you coordinate that care? So that's coming. I also see the question about group bookings. The duty of care and travel coordination and management expense, all that stuff is going to happen first, but group bookings will come, but not in the short term.
Not in the short term, yeah. The group is the is that still that last to automate ultimately.
Yeah.
Tons of automation on the management of RFPs, but still not so much for the traveler or how to bridge that group experience. Yeah, interesting. All right, guys, let's close this out with a few words of wisdom. We're prognosticating. This is a bunch of visionary guys who are doing incredible things. Share with these guys a takeaway, something that they should be thinking about, worried about, planning to do in the future that they might not already know they're going to do. Let's start with Bill.
Like I said, I'm a big believer in the next interface. Could be voice, but I also believe there's been a lot of questions on here about personalization and data. There's more data being collected on us than we even know. There's the volunteer data, there's the surfing data, but I also think location data and device data. And you're going to see some regulatory legislation coming out of Europe trying to protect that. But I do think that our devices are giving off our travel patterns. This hotel's Wi-Fi provider knows that we're in this room, and they know that we're in here for 3 hours. So we're probably here for a business meeting or a conference, right? They can start to mine that data. You didn't have to even do anything, right? Your device, your MAC address is being broadcast to this Wi-Fi network. So there's other ways to collect data, and data is going to be incredibly important to offer good service. But I think what we're going to start to see is legislative bodies start to understand how much is out there, and we're all going to face a very strong regulatory environment in how we actually use the data that we collect.
Yep. Okay.
That's a good point. I think the one thing I'd share was that never forget the importance of driving demand. And so we have teams. I've got a team in LA, a team in London, a team in Sydney, and Cape Town that are focused on driving demand for our products because we had a challenge around perception of the category. And so trying to actually change people's mindset about what an escorted tour is to a guided vacation, because people love traveling, but they don't necessarily have that same perspective when they initially come into contact with the messaging. And so this was an important one for us, and so the key for us is making sure that never taking your eye off the need to drive demand, because the challenges you're going to have, and I think you guys are experiencing this now, is if there's more than enough people that want your service or product, is that you can navigate that. Those are growing pains, and those are good problems to have, right? But if you start focusing on the other side, which is just trying to otherwise scale that demand, then if you take your eyes off building that demand, I think that's where there's an opportunity. So that's why for us, the focus has been on making sure that we start to create demand and sustain that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
And Paul, what else?
Yeah, as far as seeing like what's around the corner, I would say for the product people in your team, they should spend some time playing around with new apps in the app stores in Google Play or Apple App Store, not just for the travel industry, but also look at trending apps in other categories, and just to see what other startups are doing. And I think that can often give you some insight into things coming around the corner.
Excellent. So we should be playing all the time.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I think this is the audience to do that. Thank you guys for your thoughts. Everybody, thank this first panel.